How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Chop and Shake episode 6, the final episode of the season. And today we're at a different spot. We're going to do some barbecue ribs, some roasted Brussels sprouts, and some mashed potatoes. All right, today we got St. Louis ribs, but first I got to show you guys how to take the silver skin off the back. So we're just going to use a friend's video here. He's going to shove a butter knife underneath the silver skin, rock it back and forth a little bit so that he can get his thumb in that silver skin, and then just pull it right off. We got lucky today that our ribs didn't have any silver skin on them, so we didn't have to go through this step. That's why I wanted to show you guys, because this will make your ribs a lot more tender if you get this taken care of at the start. So I'm going to use the barbecue rub and the rub with love for these ribs. The barbecue rub is the one that we're going to do as our base and a little more heavy nonetheless. So you want to get rub on both sides of the rib, not just the meat side. So a heavy, thick layer of rub. Make sure you pat it down after you get it all in there. It'll make a nice bark after we let it sit in the smoker. So both rubs, both sides, as we get it layered on the meat side of things. And in the meantime, our smoker is preheating to 225 is what I like to do my ribs at. So we're going to get that layer on the other side as well. And we'll take the ribs out. And what I try and do is a 3-2-1 method for smoking ribs, but I always had some trouble getting the accuracy of time right on this. As you'll see today, I even messed it up as well. So always make sure to do your own reading, your own research. Something like this, it's kind of like a science that changes from person to person and smoker to smoker and rib to rib. So with our smoker at 225 with the 3-2-1 method, it would be 3 hours out in a dry smoke, and then we'd wrap it. I'll get back to that. We're doing apple smoked pellets for our smoker. But yeah, then 2 hours would be wrapped in tinfoil with a liquid. Today I'll do bourbon and brown sugar in our tinfoil. And then you'd remove it after 2 hours and do 1 more hour. But I didn't quite get it right, so we'll talk about that a little later. But for now, we're going to put our ribs on and start the smoking process at 225 degrees. We got both ribs, and that's bone side down. So you want that bone side down in the smoker so the bulk of the heat's going at the bone. So for our drink today, I'm going to make a cranberry bourbon shrub. So we got to make our syrup for that. So I got a cup of white wine vinegar, a cup of cranberries, and a cup of sugar. So 3 equal parts. And we're going to put that on medium heat and stir it until it comes to a boil, and you're going to see the cranberries start to kind of pop open, and it's going to make that white wine vinegar red, and that sugar is going to come out, and it's going to be a very vinegary but also sweet syrup that we're going to use for this drink. And this is a good drink that pairs very well with barbecue as well. So once we get that all said and done, our ribs have been smoking for 3 hours now, so I want to get that wrap ready. So I put down a layer of brown sugar. I'm going to fold up the sides that's prepared for our ribs so they don't have to be off the smoker for that long. It'll be a very quick transfer. So in the meantime, also, I'm going to get our bourbon ready. I just do 1 shot for each rack of ribs. So we'll take that stuff out to the smoker, and we'll get ready. And that's after 3 hours is what you're seeing there. So we'll bring over our brown sugar tinfoil, and we'll flip the meat side onto the brown sugar. As you'll see, we're getting a little bit of char there on the bark by the bone. We'll throw in that shot of bourbon, and we'll wrap it. And here's where I screwed up, is I should have done a double layer of tinfoil, as there's kind of a hole in this tinfoil, so it's going to cook a lot faster. It's going to get a lot drier because that moisture is escaping. So if you guys do follow this, make sure you get a good wrap so no moisture is going to escape in this time period. Because of this, when I get done with this 2 hours, my ribs are going to be done, but that's, again, not the method that I was going for. So we'll throw that shot in, wrap this one up, and they're still going to go back into the smoker with the bone side down. So that brown sugar will kind of dissolve and melt into the ribs while they're in there. So we will wrap that up and start another timer. And in the meantime, we get started on our sides. So obviously, this isn't all in quick succession. We took our time to hang out and get some other stuff done. So we've got some potatoes on the stove. They're going to boil so we can make some mashed potatoes, and I'm also going to make some roasted Brussels sprouts. So I'm taking our Brussels sprouts, I'm just cutting them in half, adding them to a bowl so that we can toss them. So just straight down the middle I'll do for most of these Brussels sprouts. And just know that these take time. So I've preheated the oven to 400 degrees. And now to the bowl I'm going to add olive oil, salt, and pepper. That's it. Nothing crazy, just good olive oil, salt, pepper. And then we're also going to chop some bacon. And it's going to be a rough kind of coarse chop on the bacon. You want big pieces with your Brussels sprouts. So we'll toss those in the olive oil, salt, pepper. We're going to throw those into a casserole dish is what I baked them in today. And then, yeah, once again, these slabs of bacon. So we took 4 or 5 strips here and just cut them nice and thick. And we'll just break them apart over the top of these Brussels sprouts. So they'll be in the oven for about a half an hour. I recommend about 15 minutes in, you go in and kind of stir them, try and flip them so they don't get all charred on like one side. But yeah, we'll toss that right in. Now we'll go pull these ribs. As I said, this was the 2-hour mark, so I went thinking that we'd have more time, but we do not. These ribs are done, and you can usually tell that by picking up from one side and seeing how much it flexes if it starts to kind of fall apart, and these certainly do. And you can see there that I have that bend, but I also have some char on the bottom from leaving that tinfoil open. So learn from my mistakes and just know that you can fully wrap these up and they can spend more time out there. For us, one end of these is drier than the other, but it turns out great anyway, and you get a good sauce and good sides, and you'll have a happy meal either way. So we'll pull off those ribs, we'll bring them inside, and we're going to lather those in our choice of barbecue sauce. You guys can do whatever barbecue sauce you want, but yeah, lather it on the top. We're going to throw it in the oven on some low heat, probably about 170, just to keep it warm until it's time to eat, because we're still preparing sides. But first, I want to get these drinks prepared so that we can drink them while we're finishing up cooking. So it's just about 2 ounces of bourbon, and then it's about a tablespoon or so of the cranberry syrup, and it's also topped off with seltzer water. It's that easy. There's not a whole lot to this drink. It's more about the sourness and sweetness of that cranberry syrup that we made and the cranberries themselves, adding to the bourbon, and then that seltzer water kind of diluting it a little bit, giving it a nice little fizz. And this drink's really simple. It's also like rustic and totally matches the barbecue flavors that we're going for in this. So that's the cranberry shrub. And now we've got our potatoes boiling, so you want to make sure that they're nice and easy to cut through is a good way to test for if they're ready to be mashed. So we've got some garlic in a pan here, and we're just going to seep some milk with the flavors that we want. So we got, as I said, garlic. We're going to add butter, and we're going to add milk, and cream cheese is what we added for our mashed potatoes tonight. And we're just going to get that nice and warm, so when we mash the potatoes, we're adding a warm liquid to the warm potatoes. We're not going to mess around with the temperature or the cooking process. We want it to all stay nice and warm. So we'll add some cracked black pepper in there as well. And now that it's warm, heated up, melted, we'll pour that over the top of the potatoes that are being mashed. And these potatoes, we're obviously not going for like silky smooth. We're hand mashing these, so there's going to be chunks. It's going to be nice and creamy as well. But if you wanted to take an immersion blender and make them whipped, you could do that same thing as well. You could use sour cream's a good option as well. And just make the mashed potatoes however you like to make them. I think that having some chunks of potato in there makes better for barbecue mashed potatoes. But there are definitely other occasions in which like whipped mashed potatoes are great as well. So once we get those mashed, our Brussels sprouts are going to come out as well, and we're ready to serve up. Drinks are ready, ribs are ready, so let's cut the ribs off. I cut a couple bones for each person. That can always come back and get more, you know what I'm saying? You can see that bark is nice and thick, and the ribs are really easy to cut. You just got to find that spot between the bones. So there you go, roasted Brussels sprouts, mashed potatoes, St. Louis ribs, and a cranberry bourbon shrub. The perfect final episode for Chop and Shake. All right, thank you guys for joining us all the way through 6 episodes of Chop and Shake. It's been a great 2020. This is the last episode of the season, and I hope through all these drinks and all these meals, you've got some good inspiration for your own kitchen. I'll catch you next time.